Good morning, sixth graders, and welcome to 5.6. In section 6 today, we'll be discussing solving percent problems. Okay, and for our learning target, we have I can find percents of numbers and find the whole if I'm given the part and the percent. So it's a two-part there. We're going to be working on finding the whole if you know your percent and your part, and also finding percents of numbers. Okay. One really common time that I see this is in the restaurant industry when you're trying to figure out a tip. And usually you give a 20% tip if you have good service. And you want to be able to use some mental math there to be able to quickly figure that out. Let's look at the cartoon quick. It says, I have a secret way for finding 21% of 80. And the cat's like, I love secrets. And then he goes on to explain, and then he's like, yeah, no thanks. But actually, the pup is right here. Okay, he explains how to find 21% of a total number by using some mental math. Okay, let's look at what he does, how to find 21% of 80. Well, he says that 10% of 8, or 10% of 80 is 8. Let's look at that. If my first number is 80, that's 100%. 10%, I have one less zero. So take away that zero and that'd give you 8. Well, 1%, you have one less zero. In other words, move the decimal one more place. So this would give you 0.8. So he says 21% is the same thing as 10%, which is 8, plus another 10%, which is 8, plus 1%, which is 0.8. So 8 plus 8 is 16, plus 0.8 is 16.8. So his mental math is actually right. It can be very, very useful when you're figuring out parts or percents. So the first thing that we're going to do, I'd like you to circle this or underline this or star this, is find the percent of a number. And there's actually a few different ways to do this. And I'll show you one way here for sure, and possibly another way shortly. It says write the percent as a fraction. So first what they want you to do is turn your percent into a fraction and then multiply by the whole number. The percent times the whole equals the part. Here it is. The percent times the whole equals the part. You can abbreviate that if you want. Percent times whole equals part. All right. So here it says 20% of 60 is 12. They took their percent and they put it into a fraction in simplest form. Remember, 20% is 20 over 100. And then they just simplify. So take a 0 away, so 2 over 10, and then divide by 2, 1 over 5. Remember, of in math means to multiply, and is a lot of times will be equals as well. Okay. They also showed you here a model of this situation, where if you have 60 as your total, well, 60 would be 100% if 60 is your total. And then they broke it down by 20% and represented it that way as well. Okay, so let's look at a blank slate here for example 1. 25% of 40 is what number? So in other words, they're saying of is your total. A lot of times in math, in these types of word problems, if you see of and then a number, the number after of is going to be your total, okay, or your whole. That's like saying there was 40 possible questions on an assignment and you got 25%. How many right did you get? Is kind of what this is saying. All right. In other words, for our key idea, change our percent to a fraction. So 25 over 100, and then simplify. Well, these are both divisible by 25, In other words, another thing that I'm thinking about is 25 cents is 1/4. So it simplifies to 1/4. Remember, of means to multiply, and I'm multiplying by 40. And 40 as a fraction is 40 over 1. Okay. What I could do first is I could simplify. So I could look diagonal and I see that 40 and 4 are both divisible by 4. So that'd be 1 and 10. Okay. And now multiplying across, 1 times 10 is 10. And 1 times 1 is 1. 10 over 1 gives me 10. So 10 is my part. And if I got 10 out of 40 on an assignment, that would give me a 25%. Okay, let's do that same thing, but now I'm going to use a ratio table to do that. So again, just showing you another way to solve it. Use a ratio table to find the part here. All right, so I'm going to draw myself a table to start. And it looks similar to the last problem where it says 60% of 150 is what number? Okay. Well, let's give myself a little ratio table here. And in my table, I'm going to have, what am I going to be comparing here? Well, I'll let one row be the part and the other one be the whole. And then find an equivalent ratio with 150 as my new whole. Okay, so starting off, I'm just going to abbreviate P for part. Well, all right, small. Part and whole. Okay, so right away I'm given that my part is, well, I have 60%, so that would be 60 out of 100. And what I want to know in the end is of a total of, well, my new total would be 150. Okay, so is there a way that I can go from 100 to a different number to go to 150, kind of dividing or multiplying by compatible numbers? Well, what I'm kind of seeing here is if I go from 100 to 50, it's pretty easy to do that by just dividing by 2. And then it would be pretty easy to go from 50 to 150 by multiplying by 3. So let's do that in my part as well. So 60 divided by 2 will give me 30. So this is the same as 30/50ths. And then to keep my ratio equivalent, I need to multiply by 3 here. Multiplied by 3 on the bottom, multiplied by 3 on top. That would give me 90. Okay, so in other words, 60% of 150 is 90. Okay, you could do that problem the way that we just did it in the previous example as well if you wanted to. That choice is kind of up to you. I'll let you pick whatever choice you want for 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. Explain your method. In other words, just say what you did. But go ahead and pause the video now and see what you come up with. Okay, number 1 should have gotten 18. 18 out of 20 is a 90 or an A. Makes sense. Number 2, 24. Number 3, 11. And number 4, 22 and a half. Okay, same thing as 22.5. So let me know if you have questions on 1, 2, 3, or 4, and I'll be glad to help. Again, change your percent to a fraction in the simplest form. Of means multiply, and multiply by that whole number there. Okay, we are next going to move on to finding the whole. Again, a big idea here. I see that I'm running out of time, so I'll pick up once I'm finished. All right, so to find the whole, And again, I would definitely make note of this. You write the percent as a fraction and then divide the part by that fraction. All right. Here is what I want you to circle or underline. This is going to be the biggest helper for you. The part divided by the percent equals the whole. Part divided by percent equals the whole. That's how you find the whole. So let's look at example 3. Gives me 75% of what number, we don't know the whole, that's what we're trying to find, is 48. Okay, again, use some keywords here. Is and then a number oftentimes means that this number is the part. Okay, so if the word is comes before this number, that's giving you a big hint that that's the part. Remember, of did the opposite thing. So of told you the whole. Well, of what number, we don't know what our whole is. That's what we're trying to find. So again, take my part, which is 48, and divide it by my percent, divided by, okay, 75%. How do I write that as a fraction? Again, 75 over 100, and then simplify. Or I'm thinking about quarters. 75% would give me 3 quarters. So same as 3/4. Okay? Now we need to remember how we divide fractions and use that awesome acronym KFF for keep the first fraction the same. So 48 over 1, I'll write it. Flip your division to multiplication and flop your last fraction to its reciprocal. Numerator into the denominator into the numerator. Okay. Before I multiply, I'm going to look and see, can I look diagonal and simplify here? Well, 48 and 3, yes, I could divide each of these by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 48 divided by 3 would give me 16. Now I can multiply across. On top, I have 16 times 4. 16 times 2 would be 32. That times 2 would give me 64. Okay, and over 1, which is the same thing as 64. So 64 is my whole. Let's see, does that make sense? Well, if my part is 48 and my whole is 64, that's like saying I got 48 out of 64, maybe like on a big test or something. Take 48 and divide it by 64 and see, does that give you 0.75? Remember, to convert between decimals and percents, you just move it twice. Well, that's the same thing as 75%. So yes, that's correct. For example 4, now it asks you, kind of like before, to use a ratio table to be able to find your whole in this one. Okay, so it says 120% of what number is 72. We're going to make our ratio table again, where we had our part and our whole. So I'll put your part top, whole on bottom, and we start with 120%. Well, that as a fraction is 120 over 100. And what I'm trying to get to is, in the end, I need my part, remember is comes before it, I need my part to be 72. Okay. Well, are there numbers that are compatible that I can go from 120 to a certain number and then go from that number to 72? I'm going to try 6. I think 6 works for both. I could go from 120 to 6 by dividing by 20. Divide by 20. So I'll divide by 20 down here, which would give me 5. And then can I go from 6 to 72? Yeah, that'd just be multiplying by 12. So multiply by 12 in my denominator as well. 5 times 12 would give me a total of 60. Okay, so 120% of 60 is 72. So that's like saying we had 60 problems on a test and you got 72. How is that possible? Well, maybe you got some extra credit or something along those lines. So if you did better than the total, you should expect a percent that's over 100. All right, again, another way using ratio tables this way to find the whole. Go ahead and pause for 5 and 6 on your own. Do it either way, and let's see how you did. Okay, number 5, you should come up with 200, and number 6, you should come up with 50. If you have a question on either one of those, let me know. Moving on to the real life application, it says the width of a rectangular room is 80% of its length. What is the area of the room? Okay, well, the width that shows right here is 15 feet. Okay, and the other thing that you have to remember is area is equal to, how do you find the area of a rectangle? Well, it's just length times width. Okay, so those are a couple things we need to know. It says the width of the room is 80% of its length. Okay, well, so to find this missing value, we just need to take 80% of 15. Okay, let's write that down. 80% of 15. Okay, remember, change your percent to a fraction. So that would be 80% would be 80 over 100. And then simplifying that, take away 0, so 8 over 10, which simplifies to 4/5. Of means times, and I'm multiplying by 15. Simplify before we multiply, so divide each of these by 5 will give you 1 and 3. Then multiplying across, you'll come up with 12 over 1, which is the same thing as 12. Okay. And so for my missing width here, it will be 12 feet. Does that make sense? Well, 80% is close to 100%, and 12 is pretty close to 15. So now all I need to do is take my length times my width, and that will give me my total area. Okay, 15 times 12 would give you a total of 180 feet squared. Okay. So if you have any questions on that, please let me know. Go ahead, pause for number 7 and the next on your own. All right, for number 7, you should have come up with 7,920 feet squared. Please ask for help if you need it. I see that I'm running out of time here, so after I come back here, we'll pick up with example 6. For example 6, it says you win an online auction for concert tickets. Really nice. Here's your concert tickets over here. And your winning bid is 60% of your maximum bid. Okay, so you didn't, the winning bid here, you paid $120 for these tickets. And that's only 60% of your maximum bid. So what it's saying is you could have bid more and you still would have had more money. How much more were you willing to pay for the tickets that you actually paid? Okay, well, your maximum bid that we don't know, right? It says your winning bid is 60% of your maximum. So we don't know what your maximum bid is. That represents the whole, or how much money you had total. So the whole is equal to your max bid, right? Your winning bid, this would represent your part, because that is only 60% of your max bid. All right? So in other words, to find the maximum bid, we need to find the whole. And remember, to find the whole, the trick was that you just need to take the part divided by the percent. So here was our part. Our part was 120, and we need to divide that by our percent. Our percent is 60%, so 60 over 100. Take away a 0 in each, so 6 over 10. Simplifies to, I'll divide each by 2, 3/5. So part 120 divided by percent, 3/5. And then think about these, how we divide fractions. Keep, flip, flop. So 120 over 1, keep that the same. Flip to multiplication and flop to its reciprocal, so 5/3. And can I simplify first? Well, divide by 3 would be 1. Divide by 3 would be 4, and add the 0. So 40. And then I can multiply across. 4 times 5 would be 20, plus 0 would be 200 over 1. Same thing as 200. So my max bid was $200. You had $200 to spend on these tickets. You only paid $120. So how much more were you willing to pay than you actually did pay? Well, 200 minus what we actually paid would give us a total of 80. So the correct answer is letter B. All right. Last one for number 8. Go ahead and pause. All right. It says if your winning bid is 90%, 96% of your max bid, how much more were you willing to pay for the tickets? And you actually paid. This would be $5. Let me know if you have questions on that. And good luck on your practice. Again, biggest thing is remembering how to find the percent of a number and also the whole. Okay. We will see you next time.